The horrific events of 9/11 have altered the image of Islam and Afghanistan. The world is dominated by the Western point of view. And how does this point of view see the Pathan in Afghanistan? Is Afghanistan condemned to be the site for the clash of civilizations? Is the Pathan bound by his faith to be fighting against the modern West? Is the Islam of Afghanistan as violent as it's made out to be? One name stands tall in the history of this country. He had more than his fair share of battles, both inner and outer. And our film will try to trace and understand the man and his battles. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan, or Badshah Khan, or Badshah Khan, a messenger of peace, the son of a farmer who rose up to be the citizen of the world.
Afghanistan, one of the poorest and one of the most troubled lands in the contemporary world. For more than a decade, it has been considered a breeding ground for fanatic fundamentalism and militancy. The memory of Mullah Omar and his brigade has not yet faded from our memories. And yet, defying this contemporary view, there is a contrasting memory too. The memory of a tall, frail man walking amidst the Pathans, singing the song of peace. Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was an epitome of non-violence, aptly named the Frontier Gandhi. He shunned all forms of violence. Fighting for the freedom and the rights of the Pathans, Ghaffar Khan changed the way the world viewed a Pathan. Traditionally, Pathans were known for their pride and the violent ways by which they defended their honor. Badal, or revenge, was most important to a Pathan. Honor killings, they would call it. If felt dishonored, a Pathan would surely kill. And the family of the victim would kill the killer, and so on. This mindless revenge knew no bounds, no family, no sanity. Nothing or nobody was ever forgiven.
I believe they say that the child, as he is born, is not given a bottle of milk, he is given a pistol in his hand. That this is what you have to play with. And here was a man who was completely different to that, who said, no, gun is not the answer to life. That if you have to fight for your things, what you have to fight with is ideology that you hold, and you use it by non-violent methods.
It was in this tradition that Abdul Ghaffar Khan embraced non-violence and forgiveness. He preached these virtues as the ways of the Prophet. Ghaffar Khan withstood pain and torture, but never retaliated. Ghaffar Khan was born to a humble farmer, Bahram Khan, chief of a small tribe. Against the then prevailing trend, he chose to educate his children in schools run by the British. Ghaffar Khan grew up with a loving, broad-minded family who treated all guests with equal respect.
If at sunset, even if a person that you would have normally shot because he'd shot someone from your family arrived on your land, then he was taken in and he'd spend the night. He was treated like you'd treat any guest of yours who'd come, looked after, fed, he'd sleep and everything. And then he was still your guest until he left your land.
In those days, there was no custom to note down birthdays, so the exact date of birth of Abdul Ghaffar Khan is not known. But history records that he was born to the Khan Bahram Khan of Utmanzai village in 1890. This village is in Charsadda Tehsil of Peshawar district, Pakistan. It was at a missionary school that he saw his teacher performing service to the needy. Abdul Ghaffar Khan was tremendously influenced by the spirit of selflessness, a virtue he would master in abundance later. In those days, it was considered extremely prestigious to join the British Indian Army. A young, well-built Pathan standing 6 feet 3 inches tall, almost immatriculate, he was selected to join the frontier guides. But when he saw British officers insult his friend, who was a cavalry officer in the Peshawar regiment, Ghaffar Khan quit. He could never stand for injustice. His struggle was for his people, the Pathans of Afghanistan. He lived for them, he strived for them, and he suffered for them. He defied the British and the Russians. His only mission was a free and democratic homeland for the Pathans, a place without violence, where the Pathans would live with their heads held high. Ghaffar Khan had a vision. He realized that education and learning would be the first step to remove Pathans from this misery. He knew that this violence is directly linked to illiteracy. He dared to open schools to give basic education to children. Did he have any idea how much trouble lay ahead? He must have. For he was scarred for life. The British felt threatened. He was sent to jail, made to walk in blazing heat with no water or food, chained to a vehicle, kept in jail with no food, in extreme cold with a torn, flea-ridden rag for cover. But all this only made Ghaffar Khan even more determined. In the tradition of those days, only the boys were sent to school. Ghaffar Khan realized that education should not be only for the boys. He encouraged girls to be educated too. He educated his daughters and sent them abroad for higher education. He was a champion of women's rights and wanted them to come out of the parda.
I wanted to go to the Amazon because I had done biology. He sent a postcard from the jail and said she will go to England or she won't go at all. And I said, you're going to send me to England? I said, to do biology? I said, first of all, you think I'm going to the British? I said, after what they've done to us, you think I'm going to go to England? I don't want to hear about England. He said, then you can stay at home. I said, you stay in Peshawar.
In 1924, Ghaffar Khan started thinking about a national newspaper. Finally, in May 1928, his dream was realized, and the first issue of Pakhtun was published. It became very popular. Soon after, Ghaffar Khan went to India. He wanted to collect money for their cause. In 1928, Ghaffar Khan met Mahatma Gandhi and Jawaharlal Nehru for the first time in a Congress meeting. Ghaffar Khan was mesmerized by the nationalistic passion that was driving Indians then. He came back and spoke to his countrymen. Thus, the idea about an organization to bring about social reforms was conceived and realized in 1929. They called it Khudai Khidmatgars, the servants of God. Khudai Khidmatgars had to take a vow before joining, a vow of non-violence, to renounce revenge and anger towards oppressors and wrongdoers, to treat every Pathan as his brother and friend, and to serve humanity in the name of God. This was no less than a revolution in the making. The more the British would torture, the more would join in. The British drove trucks into a human war, killing several people. They ordered soldiers to shoot at unarmed men and women. They rounded up Khudai Khidmatgars, removed their clothes, and beat them mercilessly. They were made to stand naked on housetops with their faces and backsides blackened. Their women forced to watch this humiliation. They sodomized these brave men with tent poles, destroyed their homes, killed their women and children. But they could not make the Pathan break his word. Such was the love and respect the Pathans had for their organization and their leader, Ghaffar Khan.
He formed these people, with all these people used to come to him, and they used to go walking from village to village, helping people, telling people not to fight, settling feuds, opening schools. He gave a whole lot of his land. He built schools both for girls, for boys, for everybody. got the teachers for them along one of the riverbanks near Utmanzai. And he just carried on doing this all the time. And he kept telling these people that you were not put over here just, to fulfill your own needs and just enjoy yourself. You must help those around you who are not as fortunate, who need your help.
His loyalty was to the people, a people he loved, and for their sake, he was willing to go any distance. He and his brother fought to save the Hindus and Sikhs in the frontier. He brought relief to the Muslims in Bihar. His tongue had a sharp edge and could lash out against any injustice. And he confronted Jinnah in Pakistan and the parliament in India with some very uncomfortable questions about the attacks on the minorities. This to him was the true meaning of Islam.
Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan would often say, "What pleases God, pleases me." His Islam appeared to be of the most natural kind. He would say, prayer in whatever language or form was addressed to the one and the same God. Ghaffar Khan studied the Gita with equal reverence as he did the Quran. He listened to the Guru Granth Sahib read out to him by his fellow Sikh prisoners. He considered his religion to be truth, love, and service to God and humanity. He felt every religion that had come to the world had brought the message of love and brotherhood. He followed the way of life shown by the Prophet. That man is a Muslim who never hurts anyone by word or deed, but who works for the benefit and happiness of God's creatures. On one instance, when Ghaffar Khan met Gandhiji, there was an interesting conversation between them. "Gandhiji, you have been preaching non-violence in India for a long time now, but I started teaching the Pathans non-violence only a short time ago. Yet, in comparison, the Pathans seem to have grasped the idea of non-violence much quicker and much better than the Indians. How do you explain that?" Gandhiji replied, "Non-violence is not for cowards. It is for the brave and for the courageous. And the Pathans are brave and courageous. That is the reason why the Pathans were able to remain non-violent."
Like Gandhi, the Khan Sahib fought for the rights of the threatened, the poor and the weak. Like Gandhi, he had no use for guns and bombs. Like Gandhi, he stayed away from power and worked for social and humanitarian ends. Like Gandhi, he sought to relieve poverty and resist oppression. Mahatma Gandhi and Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan were brothers in arms, and the only weapons they possessed were courage and conscience.
Mahatma Gandhi had once said that though the sword has been raised in the name of Islam, and often for the sake of Islam, but let us not forget that Islam was not founded by the sword. Many people were surprised at Abdul Ghaffar Khan's pledge to non-violence. They would think of Muslims as naturally violent people. To this, Khan Sahib would say, "Surely there's nothing surprising in a Mussalman or a Pathan like me subscribing to the creed of non-violence. It is not a new creed. It was followed 1400 years ago by the Prophet all the time he was in Mecca. But we had so far forgotten it that when Mahatma Gandhi placed it before us, we thought he was sponsoring a new creed or a novel weapon. We can surely be credited with being the first amongst us to revive a forgotten creed." Those were the days of fighting. The British were fighting a war. The Congress was fighting the British. The Muslim League was fighting the Congress. And Abdul Ghaffar Khan was helping the Congress in its fight for independence. Hindu radicals would not trust him completely. Muslim radicals would accuse him of being a Hindu lover, ignoring the call of Islam. He would simply say, "Have we forgotten the teachings of Islam? The teaching of Islam asks us to side with the weaker party. We ought to be torch bearers in the country's struggle for independence."
And he always said that nowhere in the Quran or anywhere in any religion is it written that, you go out and you kill people because they don't believe in your religion. And God has made everyone, all human beings are made by the same God. So whether you're a Hindu or a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Sikh, you are still a human being.
The chief asset of Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan was his courage. He had his own interpretation of the scriptures and was not afraid to act upon it. And he did not hesitate to criticize those Muslim voices which used religion for commercial or political reasons. And the voices retaliated, they criticized him at each stage. Right from the beginning, when he started going to school with his brother, or when he started his own school and encouraged the education of the girl child, or when he joined hands with Christians and Sikhs and Hindus to fight for India's freedom, or when he opposed the partition of India along religious lines, or when he protected Sikhs and Hindus against violence in the frontier province. At each stage he was criticized, but his faith never wavered. Till the end he insisted that the Prophet's chief demand of a Muslim was the service of fellow human beings.
Ghaffar Khan and his army of 100,000 Khudai Khidmatgars fought for Indian independence. They were never in favor of partition, yet in the cold, calculated negotiations between the British, the Muslim League and the Congress, partition was thrust upon them. Their voice did not matter. Nobody cared for Ghaffar Khan and his Pathans. They were the victims of a trade-off. Khan Sahab was devastated.
Deep down, he felt he was betrayed by the leaders of the Congress when the division of India was taking place. As you know, Frontier Gandhi was not in favor of two-nation theory. He believed in Gandhian way of philosophy, worked for Gandhian way of life all his life, wore khadi to the last day.
Ghaffar Khan now gave a call for true democracy and justice. For this, he paid dearly. Imprisoned and ill-treated, Ghaffar Khan suffered great humiliation. He withstood all, never giving up his belief in non-violence and love. Ultimately, when Ghaffar Khan was very dangerously ill in prison, he was released. His doctors advised him to go to London. But the weather was not agreeable. Ghaffar Khan decided to go to Afghanistan. He reached Kabul and spent his days there and in Jalalabad. He did come to India after 22 years for Gandhiji's centenary celebrations on 2nd October 1969. And then, in 1987, he was bestowed the highest honor of Bharat Ratna. However, tragically, he had a heart attack and went into a coma. Ghaffar Khan never recovered after that. He was taken to Jalalabad, where he breathed his last on 20th January 1988. When he died, a sea of people poured into Jalalabad. Rajiv Gandhi, the then Prime Minister of India, postponed his other plans and rushed to Afghanistan to offer his respects. This great legend held no post, and yet he forced one of the world's most powerful nations, Russia, to call a ceasefire. Highest officials of countries and governments paid homage. Even in his death, he remained the Badshah, the King of Kings. Tragically, present-day Pathans have been terrorized by another so-called leader, whose name is synonymous with all that Khan Sahab was against. The post-9/11 world knows him as Mullah Umar, the fanatic Taliban leader, enemy of the US and host to Osama bin Laden in Afghanistan. Mullah Umar is a complete antithesis of Ghaffar Khan. The struggle for which Ghaffar Khan mobilized his fellow Pathans was completely non-violent, whereas Mullah Umar took violence to extreme levels. Secondly, Ghaffar Khan was trying to fight against an age-old tradition of revenge amongst Pathans. To him, forgiveness was an important part of Islam. Another important difference between Ghaffar Khan and the Taliban was that non-Muslims were equally important to him. Ghaffar Khan always said that he and his Pathans would protect Hindus, Sikhs and Christians living in northwest frontier province where Muslims were in majority. He always cited the influence of two non-Muslims on him. One was a white Christian schoolmaster called Vikram, and another was a Hindu called Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi. Perhaps the most significant differences between Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan's movement and the Taliban was that Badshah Khan wanted Pashtun women to study, work and lead the society. In 1932, he sent his teenage daughter, Meher Taj, to study in England. We also know from his recounts that Baacha Khan was enthusiastic about the Buddhist heritage of that region. He respected all religions and the Buddhist history in that area. The subsequent destruction of the Bamiyan statues would have surely broken his heart. Last, but certainly not the least, the Taliban cadres had an attitude of me first and displayed double standards at all levels, whereas Badshah Khan had asked his Khudai khidmatgars to serve the society and practice what they preached. Perhaps it seems unfair to compare the two. Taliban, which raised the gun for the sake of their interpretation of Islam and never hesitated from mindless killings, and Khudai khidmatgars of Badshah Khan, who took an oath of non-violence, respected other religions, and were committed to the development of their people. The life of Abdul Ghaffar Khan is an inspiring saga. Mahatma Gandhi described him as a man of God. One of the greatest leaders of Asia, he was the closest colleague of Gandhi and a passionate freedom fighter, a non-violent Badshah of Khans. Badshah Khan's life has the capacity to speak meaningfully to an inhabitant of our times, to one who's young, or Muslim, or both, or neither.
We live in turbulent times, but we cannot afford to make the mistake of forgetting our history. What does Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan mean to us? He was no mere Pakhtun leader. He was a colossus in the history of the subcontinent, a secular leader who was Muslim in the true sense of the term. In our film, we have tried to study him. He was all that and more, which is why his voice will continue to echo down the centuries. A citizen of the world, a messenger of peace and non-violence.